Let's do this.
Hello everyone, this is Storydive back again, breaking down the Easter eggs, references, and callbacks from another season of Cobra Kai, this time Season 4, which was recently released by Netflix. To briefly review the season, I really enjoyed this one, like the previous seasons, and I'm still very excited to see where they go next in the series. Cobra Kai as a series has always kind of worked in the gray areas of the hero and the villain, or the good guy and the bully, and for me, the waters got even murkier in this season. We had the Miyagi-Dos doing some bullying, we even had Daniel's son Anthony essentially becoming the Johnny of a mini Karate Kid remake that was sort of running through the season, until the end of course when they switched things up again. Also, it was great to see the Machiavellian master manipulator Terry Silver back in the mix. Like the previous seasons of Cobra Kai, this season had a lot of Easter eggs, callbacks, and references, so in this video I will do my best to break those down. I will skip over some of the references covered in my previous videos, so if you haven't already, check out my Cobra Kai playlist. There will be spoilers in this video, so with that out of the way, let's get started. As a little bit of payback for his behavior in last season, Johnny sweeps the leg on Hawk. They do this classic Cobra Kai move in every season, and there's a lot more sweeps in this season as well.
You have a Habsburg jawline.
This guy points out that Kreese has a Habsburg jawline, which, in case you were wondering what that is, it's this rather interesting looking jaw sported by the German-Austrian royal family, the Habsburgs. In every season they make reference to some great 80s action movies, and here Miguel references Rocky 3.
What about Rocky 3? He and Apollo had to work together.
In Rocky 1 and 2, Apollo and Rocky were rivals, but in Part 3 they team up to beat Clubber Lang. They actually make a lot of Rocky references in the season, as well as some Bloodsport references, which we'll get to. When reminded of Daniel, Terry Silver uses his old nickname for him, Danny Boy.
Danny Boy?
What's it gonna be, Danny Boy?
Then when Daniel comes to make peace with some brews, of course he knows Johnny's brand, Coors Banquet. At the end of episode 1, when Terry Silver reignites his inner Terry Silver, we get a great Easter egg regarding the writer of the first 3 Karate Kid films, Robert Mark Kamen. In real life, he owns a winery called Kamen Estates, and we can clearly see that Terry has some of this wine. Pretty meta. Here Daniel repeats Miyagi's beer bottle chopping technique, even though Miyagi had never done that before Karate Kid 1.
How did you do that?
Don't know. Fast time.
I never thought I'd see Johnny doing wax on, wax off, sand the floor, and the single hammer strike, but he learns Miyagi-Do in this scene. Daniel tells him about Shimpo-sensei, Miyagi's ancestor, and as with the previous seasons, Daniel imparts a lot of word-for-word Miyagi advices from the original Karate Kid films.
You karate do gesso.
Get squished like grape.
And this one is actually my favorite Miyagi-ism.
Never put passion before principle.
Because even if you win, you lose.
As Johnny tries to teach Daniel a little eagle fang, they do so in this abandoned warehouse owned by Weber Industrial. Weber was actually the original surname of Daniel in the original Karate Kid script. When they cast Ralph Macchio, they decided to change it to LaRusso to sound a little more Italian. And Johnny even repeats the ball pitching machine training method that he used on Miguel in the first season. He also gets Daniel to do some knuckle push-ups, something that Cobra Kai is known for.
Give me 60 push-ups on your knuckles.
In the second episode, we get that mini remake of the original Karate Kid that I mentioned, with this kid Kenny as the Daniel, and, surprise surprise, Daniel's son, Anthony, as the Johnny. And in this scene, he even climbs over a fence to get away from them, much like Daniel tried to do in the original Karate Kid, although he didn't quite make it. Kenny ends up hiding in a dumpster, which is a little bit more like Bastian in The Neverending Story. In this scene, Johnny quotes Kreese from the first Karate Kid film, calling Daniel a prima donna.
No one touches the prima donna until the tournament.
You're tougher than a prima donna, I'll give you that.
During this hockey fight, Daniel becomes a little more Cobra Kai. He strikes first, and this move is very similar to a move Miyagi does in the gas station fight of the next Karate Kid. After the fight is over, of course, he does the classic Miyagi post-fight scanning technique, and Johnny quotes Miyagi, the advice that Daniel gave him earlier: the best defense or best block is no be there.
No be there.
Best block. No be there.
Okay.
While training later, Johnny and Daniel wear Miyagi's catcher outfit to protect against hits, but Johnny has no problem mocking the crane technique. In this scene, Miguel feels a little bit like Daniel did in the first Karate Kid, being the not-so-wealthy kid with a single mom, trying to go out with the wealthy girl, or one of the Hills.
Hills? What's the Hills? It's rich.
Who in this case is Samantha LaRusso. This training method isn't so Miyagi-Do, but it is kind of Senso Tanaka, if you know who I mean. That's the sensei in the classic 1988 Van Damme martial arts film Bloodsport, which they actually watched later at the drive-in. The new Eagle Fang recruit, Devin, even refers to how Chong Li cheats at the end of that movie by spraying powder in Frank Duke's eyes. I think the showrunners are really showing their love of Bloodsport in this season. In the mini remake of Karate Kid, Robbie is oddly the Miyagi and even uses a Miyagiism, always look eye.
Always look eye.
Always look your opponent in the eye.
Later, Daniel is also a bit of a Miyagi by helping Miguel with his car troubles the same way Miyagi helped him. Daniel also gives Miguel some advice based on his experiences in Karate Kid 2 and 3, mentioning the ice-breaking contest and bonsai tree store. In this scene, we finally see Terry getting his matching Cobra Kai tattoo with Kreese. We knew he had one of these, but they actually never showed it in Karate Kid Part 3, so this is the first time we see it. This scene is a little reminiscent of the Halloween bathroom scene in the first Karate Kid, only the Miyagi-Dos are the bullies here. I guess some people would see Daniel as the bully in that scene as well. Here, Terry and Kreese bow to each other the same way they did in Karate Kid Part 3 before they fought Miyagi, and said,
Party time.
Incidentally, that's also the name of Episode 8 of this season. Here we find out that Johnny not only sees himself as the hero of The Karate Kid, but he also sees the villains of other 80s movies as the hero. In this case, he sees Val Kilmer's Iceman as the hero of Top Gun rather than Tom Cruise.
Can't call yourself a maverick.
Although admittedly Iceman wasn't really that bad. In order to relate to Miguel a little bit with his situation with Johnny, Daniel tells him that his mom actually dated his high school history teacher, Mr. Harris.
One time I caught her on a date with Mr. Harris.
Who we saw in the first Karate Kid. It's this guy.
Hey, Mr. Harris. Can I talk to you for a second? Yeah, LaRusso, third period history class.
I had no idea Daniel's mom dated him. Here, Terry repeats his training line from Karate Kid 3, if a man can't stand, he can't fight.
A man can't stand.
You can't fight.
That's, as he calls it, the Quicksilver method, and as we find out later, his license plate says Quicksilver. He even does a little bit of that come on little man stuff that he did with Miyagi. This isn't a reference, but I'm not surprised this search engine couldn't predict that question. Of course, Johnny doesn't find what he's looking for, but with all the Bloodsport references in this season, I can't help but think that blindfold might be a bit of a reference to Bloodsport. During this flashback, we learn that Johnny's father also drank the same brand as him, Coors Banquet. I guess that's where he got it from. Johnny introduced Miguel to the hard rock of the 80s, and in this scene, Daniel introduces him to the smooth rock of the 80s. You could say the yacht rock.
Michael McDonald, Billy Joel, Chicago.
And I have to admit, I love some of this stuff even more than the hard rock. He even brings up Chicago, whose lead singer Peter Cetera sang the theme of Karate Kid Part 2, Glory of Love. And in a very meta reference later, Miguel even mentions that song. It's odd that it exists in this series, because it was on the Karate Kid 2 soundtrack, but cool it gets a mention.
Peter Cetera is the opposite of badass.
In this scene, the Miyagi-Dos kind of do a larger scale version of what Daniel did on Halloween night in the first Karate Kid, and Hawk says they didn't even have to throw a punch, which reminds me a bit of Bruce Lee's art of fighting without fighting from Enter the Dragon.
We didn't have to throw a punch.
You can call it the art of fighting without fighting.
After this, Johnny makes reference to his classic line, "You couldn't leave well enough alone."
Think they're just gonna leave well enough alone?
You couldn't leave well enough alone.
And Daniel makes a very subtle reference to another Ralph Macchio role. He says, "What did you expect?"
Drive-in switchblade fight?
Which I'm pretty sure is a reference to his character Johnny in the 1983 film The Outsiders. Here the kids mention another 80s classic fantasy sci-fi movie, The Highlander.
He looks like a Highlander.
And actually, I would say he looks more like Sean Connery in the original Highlander. Ironically, Terry asks for the same terms that Miyagi asked for in Karate Kid 1, for the Miyagi-Dos to leave his students alone until the tournament. In this scene, Dimitri references Terry's toxic waste scandal, which we heard about in Karate Kid Part 3.
Look at this. 10 years ago, nuclear was the preferred waste. You could dump it anywhere.
According to the Eagle Fang Twitter, Johnny is still using the term hash brown rather than hashtag, and dead meat, a term Dutch used in the first Karate Kid film. Here, Amanda asks Daniel if there are any more whack jobs from Daniel's past that might show up, and he has to think about it. I'm pretty sure he's thinking of the bad boy of karate, Mike Barnes, who we may get to see in Season 5. It wouldn't be Cobra Kai without a nice 80s-style training montage, and here Johnny runs on the beach reminiscent of Rocky and Apollo in Rocky 3. There's even a Rocky montage song playing, Burning Heart by Survivor. That was in Rocky 4. Later during the tournament, Carrie Underwood sings another Survivor song, The Moment of Truth, which was on the Karate Kid soundtrack. At the end of Johnny's beach training montage, he even does some Miyagi-Do wave balance training, and while he does this, a fangless eagle soars above him. It's also interesting that during the sequence, we see some footage from a deleted scene from the original Karate Kid. This scene was cut out of the original Karate Kid. This is the first time I've actually seen this footage. Here Samantha throws her Perrier bottle cap like Johnny, and Daniel realizes he has a problem. To prepare for Daniel's crane technique, Johnny comes up with a pretty similar counter to Chosen. He says he's going to do a little fake first, just like Chosen did. During Johnny and Daniel's epic tournament fight rematch, Daniel does the technique that was taught to him by Chosen in the previous season, and actually it starts off with a real kata called Sanshin. But in the end, the fight has a Rocky II ending, meaning they both fall down, so really the match should be decided by who can get up before the 10 count, which is how Rocky won the fight at the end of Rocky II. In this funny scene, Johnny tries to oil Miguel up to basically make him look like William Zabka did in various teen magazines in the 80s. To warn Robbie about Terry, Daniel makes reference to busting that guy's nose in Karate Kid 3.
One day you'll find yourself with some poor kid's blood all over your shirt.
And here Johnny references the 1992 movie Ladybugs, which is kind of a deep cut. That film stars Rodney Dangerfield, who also starred in Back to School, in which William Zabka was once again the bully.
Guy gets no respect.
I don't get no respect.
Getting back to the little version of the Karate Kid remake, like Little Archie, Anthony's friend repeats Tommy's line from the beginning of Karate Kid 1.
Looks like everyone's doing something new.
Looks like everyone's doing something new. Take a right, check it out.
Although Anthony takes a left rather than a right. In this scene, after mentioning Bloodsport, Devin references a few classic martial art movies and Cynthia Rothrock, who was basically the 80s martial art movie queen. Really, it's between her and Michelle Yeoh, but for me, Michelle Yeoh was more the queen of the 90s. In this scene, Devin references the best taekwondo movie of the 80s, Best of the Best, given that their arms are in slings like Eric Roberts' character in that movie. We've all seen the Daniel is the real bully video, but this guy is saying Anthony is the real bully.
Anthony has been a real bully this year.
It's great to see Stingray back, and I think this line,
Messing with Cobra, you get the fangs.
is a variation on the classic Breakfast Club line,
Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
In case you were wondering why cousin Vanessa looks so much like Daniel LaRusso, it's because the actress is actually Ralph Macchio's daughter, Julia Macchio. However, Amanda calls her Marissa Tomei Jr., definitely making a reference to her character in My Cousin Vinny, which also starred Ralph Macchio. Kreese and Terry meet Johnny at Kreese's old dojo, where they both got their asses kicked by Miyagi in Karate Kid Part 3, and during this scene, Terry really starts to seem like Terry from Karate Kid 3.
Whoa!
The only problem is Johnny's defense isn't quite as good as Miyagi's, and Terry's able to counter it with one of his trademark backspin kicks. After this, Miguel finds Johnny on another bender. He's still got Top Gun in the brain apparently because he's singing a song from that movie, Playing with the Boys, by Kenny Loggins.
Playing with the boys.
And during the scene, Miguel helps his sensei and puts him in bed very much like Daniel did with Miyagi in the first Karate Kid film. Robbie teaches the Cobra Kai some classic Miyagi techniques, wax on, wax off, and the drum technique, so they can use it against the Miyagi-Dos in the All Valley tournament, and it works. In this fight, Hawk, or I guess now Eli, pulls one of Daniel's favorite moves, and when he gets his confidence back, we can even hear that Hawk sound effect that we heard in the previous seasons. Miguel gets a timeout from his match due to injury, much like Daniel in the first Karate Kid film, but unlike Daniel, he decides not to return to the match. Before Dimitri's match, Eli makes a pretty sweet reference to Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, saying that Dimitri has the high ground, but Dimitri still loses. Eli goes against Robbie for the final match in the male division, and here Robbie does what I think is a Neo from the Matrix kick follow-through. For the first time since Karate Kid 3, they go into sudden death overtime, and they go shirtless for seemingly no reason, except for maybe to look a little bit more like Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport.
Miyagi, bang.
This is actually funny because in my previous season breakdown video, as a joke, I said they would probably call the dojo Miyagi Fang, which Daniel does here. Eli wins the male division, but in the female division final, Samantha faces Tori again and does the Miyagi family kata. However, ultimately, Tori wins and the Cobra Kais win on points. Terry Silver says he's going to open up Cobra Kai dojos all over the valley, just like he did in Karate Kid 3. However, in the next scene, we see the old Terry come back, the master manipulator. Not only did Silver have this ref on his payroll, but soon we find out he has framed Kreese for beating up Stingray, and it seems like he will open those dojos just without Kreese. Miguel leaves to find his father in Mexico, and then in the final scene, I was really happy to see that Chozen is back. I thought he would just be in Season 3 and then we wouldn't see him again, but to know he's in Season 5 really makes me excited for that season, and I suspect that if Daniel has Chozen on his side, then Terry will have to call up the karate bad boy, Mike Barnes.
Sure, I can dig up an old friend or two to help out with Cobra Kai.
Those are all the references, callbacks, and Easter eggs that I noticed in this season. However, I'm sure I missed a few, so please let me know what those are in the comments below. And also let me know what you thought of this season. I read some negative reviews of the season, but for me it was great. I really enjoyed it. I'd love to know what you thought and what you think might happen in the next season. Give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. You also might want to check out my Cobra Kai playlist with all my Cobra Kai videos going back to the first season. I will likely do another Cobra Kai video when the next season comes out. We'll have to see. Thanks for watching, and until next time.